What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy with Hometown Commander, back for another video. Today we're trying something new. I hope that you guys enjoy this idea that I have. I do a lot of brewing in my own personal time. It's probably my favorite thing about this format is picking commanders, building decks, and then eventually testing those decks, trying them out. And for that reason, I've gone through some commanders in the past where I've tried them and they've failed, or I've built decks in the past and they've failed. But my main goal of this series is going to be brewing on camera. I think this is something that a lot of people really aren't making content for. And my hope is that this is something that will help anyone looking to build the commanders that I'm brewing around. Newer players who don't necessarily know how to brew, I hope that this is a deck that can kind of help you in your brewing process. But in all reality, I think it's just going to be a ton of fun to do this yammering into the ether as opposed to doing it myself. The first couple episodes here are going to be decks that I've had in the past that I'm kind of updating, bringing into the current format. Of course, we have access to some more cards than the time that we originally built these decks, as well as I've learned a lot as well. Our first episode today, our first episode in this series is going to be Zaxara, the Exemplary. We're doing Sultai. We have a 1 in Sultai, legendary creature Nightmare Hydra with Death Touch. We can tap it to add 2 mana of any one color. It says whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, we're going to create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token and put X +1/+1 counters on it. So we're playing Sultai, we're playing +1/+1 counters, and we're playing X spells. X spells was the big focus of the deck last time, and that's going to be the focus of the deck this time. So this one's going to be a little bit unique, especially these first few here that I do, because I have my 120, 130 card list that I had previously proxied out in front of me. So in this episode, what I'm going to be doing is kind of working through my process of re-solidifying this list. In the future, what this is going to look like is me actually building it from scratch here on Moxfield. So this time, we're not really necessarily cheating. I'm still going to walk through all of my my thought process here for you guys. But I have the on-ramp in the sense that I've built this deck before. It's a deck I've played before. And so we're going to get a little bit more pointed into the strategy. So let's talk about how we want the deck to work. So the reason the way I built the deck was Hydra Tribal as much as possible. And then we had 2 different win cons. One was combat. We're going to make some pretty big Hydras. We can give them trample, and hopefully we can place some good attacks and win the game that way. But the one thing that I found that worked really well was that we have access to 2 different enchantments, both Freed from the Real and Pemenzora, that both allow Zaxara to go infinite on mana. So really quick, I'll kind of explain how this is going to work. So Zaxara would tap to start the loop with 2 green mana. Or sorry, 2 blue mana, I apologize. With each of them, we can untap Zaxara for 1 blue mana. So you can see on Freed from the Real, it says tap. We can either do it tap or untap. And on Pemenzora, we can untap. And no tap, though. But on Pemenzora, we can actually give our creature hexproof, which is kind of cool. And we can also give it flying, which is kind of cool. But anyway, so how the loop would work is you're going to first tap it for 2 blue mana. That's going to have 2 blue mana in our mana pool. We're going to pay 1 of it to untap Zaxara. So now Zaxara will go down to be untapped, and we'll have 1 blue mana on our mana pool. We'll pick 2 mana of any other color, tap it for that 2 mana, use the blue we had remaining from our first tap to untap Zaxara, and now we have 2 floating mana of the color we chose, and we're just going to repeat that cycle for as much colored mana as we want to. So, there are 3 big X spells that in all reality, 4, but I think 3 main X spells that make a ton of sense for us to kind of want to use as finishers. The first is Exsanguinate. This is an X spell that says each opponent loses X life, and we gain life equal to the life lost this way, and that's an X spell. So there we're looking to pick X as arbitrarily high as possible, nuke the entire board for their life totals, and gain all of that life. The good part about Exsanguinate is in the mid to early, in the mid to late game here, we can always do this for a smaller amount and still gain a value. We don't have to end the game with Exsanguinate. Next up, we have Torment Hellfire. This is a spell that hopefully will, if we pick X as a high enough amount, we will end the game with this card. But it says X black black, repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. So if we pick an arbitrarily high number like 20 or 25 or 30, unless our opponents have a lot of non-land permanents out or and a lot of cards in their hand, they're going to take 3 life each time. And what we can do in the moment is, if we have infinite mana, of course, we can call X as 100, we can call it as 500, we can call it as 1,000. It doesn't matter in the moment. But if we're going to use this in the short game, we need to make sure that we're picking a value of X that's high enough to still do a lot of damage. Even for 5 or 6 into the X, Torment Hellfire can do a lot of good in the long run to truly hurt our opponents. And then number 3 is going to be Mind Grind. This is a sorcery that says each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal X land cards. Then put all cards revealed this way into their graveyard. X cannot be 0. So the thought process here, we're going to pick an arbitrarily high number. Let's, for example, our deck has 99 cards in it, but the X here is land cards. Well, no one plays more than 50 lands in their deck unless we're playing against a landfall deck. So if we have infinite mana, we can pick an arbitrarily largely high number like 70 for X, and we know that all of our opponents are then going to mill their entire libraries. Now, the only downside to Mind Grind is there are a couple Eldrazi Titans in the format that say when they're put into the graveyard from anywhere, you reshuffle your library back in. So, Mind Grind does have the chance, technically, to save an opponent if they have one of those cards in their deck. But I think we're better off assuming that they don't have it than if they do have it, right? I think if we make all of our card choice decisions by what they could have, I worry that we won't actually win the game at the end of the day. We'll be so paralyzed by that. And the 4th one is going to be Finale Devastation. This is a spell that can give all our creatures haste, but it says search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it on the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more creatures you control, get +X, and haste until the end of the turn. So what we need to do is put in a couple creatures that actually come down with CMC. So a perfect example. One of my favorite Hydras in this deck, and we'll add it in there because it gives us a lot of great value, is a card like Hydroid Crisis. This is a Hydra. It is X blue-green. So the way that the Hydras work is when we pay mana into the X, that's how many 1/1 counters they come down with. So if we were to somehow cheat Hydroid Crisis from either our library or our graveyard onto the battlefield, it'll come in as a 0/0 because we didn't pay any mana for it. Whereas if we cast it from our hand, it comes in with power and toughness. So what we need to do is put in a couple creatures so this Finale Devastation has a target. Well, that's going to be easy because I think we have 2 that really fit our strategy. The first is going to be Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider. This is our Vorinclex from our most recent time on Kaldheim. Trample and Haste. It says, if you were to put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, instead you put twice that many counters, and our opponent put half that many. This goes completely right up our strategy. We're going to be playing these Hydras. We're going to be playing these big Hydras. Why not double them for free, right? I think that's going to end up being a lot of good benefit. And I don't even mind hard casting Vorinclex, especially since we're going to have the mana for it. And the second one, and I'm not saying we're only playing 2 non-Hydra creatures total, I'm just saying let's add these for now, is going to be Herald of Secret Streams. So this will be one of our minimally non-Hydra creatures. But this says, creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them cannot be blocked. Well, most of our creatures we want to get +1/+1 counters on, or be these Hydra cards that we're going to cast with and come in with +1/+1 counters. So off of Finale Devastation, Herald of the Streams is probably going to win us the game because most of those creatures that we have on the battlefield are going to have +1/+1 counters on them, and then therefore cannot be blocked. So I think that's a really good choice. That's going to help push ourselves forward. So normally when I brew, I start with lands, but I think in this case, let's start with lands. So my goal here is we're not going to go to the H-Rec yet. What I like to try to do is do as much as I can before I approach EDH. The reason is I think it allows you to do some more research on your own, find your own things, and try your best to build a deck come up with stuff on your own. And I'm not saying that it's cheating, or I fully recommend EDH. You should use it. Please use it. It's a fantastic resource. But I always like to try to do as much as I can without it, just to test my own knowledge, get myself more comfortable. So we'll start with our lands. First off, we're going to go with Command Tower. I think Command Tower is a staple in any deck that isn't monocolored. I would kind of argue that in a monocolored deck you might actually get more benefit running a basic land than a Command Tower, but I think in literally every other list we want the Command Tower. Next up, in any 3-color deck, I like to go for my Triome, most of the time because I'm going to be able to search it out fairly quickly, and this time we're going to go with Zagoth Triome. This is our Sultai Triome. We'll get to our fetch lands in a second. I normally like to start with any land that can tap for all of my colors. So because we're going to play a little bit of tribal synergy, I'm going to go with Path of Ancestry. This is a land that comes in tapped. It can tap for a mana of any color in our commander identity, so this will tap for all 3 of our colors. And if we cast a creature that shares a creature type with Zaxara, we'll scry 1. So any Hydra or any Nightmare that we cast, we'll get 1, which will be most. Funnily enough, also, if you tap it to cast... If you tap it to cast Zaxara, you will scry 1 because, of course, your commander shares a card type with your commander, which I think is just kind of funny that it works that way. Next up, since we're going to be going a little bit tribal as well, I'm going to put in a Cavernous Souls. This is going to help with, if we get it in our opening hand, this is going to help us with not getting Zaxara countered, or ever getting Zaxara countered, but it's also going to make sure our creature spells of Hydra, because that's what we're going to pick, don't get countered when we cast them, which is going to be really big, especially for a lot of the Hydras, like Hydra Craces, that give us good value on cast, or other Hydras that give good value when they come in. We want to make sure we get those abilities. Next up, it's not a 3-color land, but I think we're going to end up playing a lot of permanents, so I think it's going to be well worth it. And that's Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. This is a land that can tap and add mana to our mana pool equal to our devotion to any particular color. Since we're playing Hydras, and a lot of Hydras are green, we'll probably end up getting green more than anything else off of it. But there's going to be a couple key enchantments. There's going to be a couple key creatures that we're always going to kind of be looking to get out. I like Nykthos because as long as our devotion to each color is more than 3, the 2 mana we put into this, and tapping the Nykthos, Nykthos is more than worth playing, right? Because we're putting 2 mana and tapping Nykthos into it. As long as I get more than 3 mana out of it, we're netting mana in the process. Unfortunately, it's all 1 color, but a lot of our permanents are monocolored, and a lot of our spells are monocolored. So we don't mind that, because I think we're still going to get all the benefit from it. And the last one is more of a win more card than it is a generally good card, and that's City of Brass. I think City of Brass is going to help us, especially in the early game, getting ourselves into the colors we may not have already, and really pushing us forward. And I don't think we mind taking the 1 life. And then the last land here is going to be Reflecting Pool. Reflecting Pool says that we can tap it and add a mana of any type that a land we control could produce. So as soon as we get our Triome down, or we get a couple dual lands down, Reflecting Pool will be able to tap for every single one of our colors. And that's great. That's what pushes us forward. That's what we want. Now we'll go into our more of our utility lands. So what I did the last time I brewed this deck, and I think I'm still very content to go down this route again. I have started playing Ancient Tomb since this deck was built, and I traditionally only play Ancient Tomb in decks that care about big mana, and decks that can use big mana quickly. So I think Ancient Tomb is one of them. This is one of those decks. We want to get to these big X spells, so I think Ancient Tomb does a lot of good. The only downside, of course, is that it deals 2 damage to us. But the next 2 cards are going to be cards, hopefully, that can help us get around that if need be. The first one is going to be one of the most common black land combos of all time, and that's Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Cabal Coffers. So Urborg says each land is a swamp in addition to its other type. So every single player's lands on the battlefield is a swamp in addition to its other type. Well, Cabal Cover says we can pay 2 and tap it, and add a black for each swamp we control. Well, with Urborg out, it makes all of our lands swamps, which means for 2 mana and tapping Cabal Coffers, we can get X black mana, where X is the number of lands we control, right? Which is very much going to propel us forward. This is a combo that hopefully I can search out or I can get access to quickly, or through other means, which will make sure that we can utilize it. The second is going to be Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. This is the same thing as Urborg, but for green. This is going to make every land a forest. This is going to help because, 1, most of the creatures in our deck are going to be green. And 2, because Cabal Coffers is unfortunately one of those lands that if you get it without any way to have it tap for any other color of mana, it's a dead land. We have to pay 2 in to tap it for anything. So we want to give some backup ways to tap this Cabal Coffers for colored mana. And the last one I love just because I think it fits the theme of the deck, and that's Lair of the Hydra. We can pay mana to make it an XX green Hydra until end of turn. I think that just fits the theme, right? And that makes it pretty fun. And on top of that, it's just a good land. It'll allow us to have a blocker if we need it, and of course we can turn it into a creature for those big turns. Next, we're going to go into our fetches. Now, technically, I'm allowed to play every fetch land that can tap a color that I have in my commander's color identity, although I traditionally only play the fetch lands that are both colors are included in my commander's color identity. So in this case, I'm playing Misty Rainforest, I'm playing Polluted Delta, and I'm playing Verdant Catacombs. If you choose to play the other fetch lands, no water off of my back. I don't care personally. That's your deck building choice. I just think that this is the way it should work. So this is the way that I build. But again, there's nothing in the commander rules that say I couldn't play 6 fetch lands instead of 3, because I would be able to play 3 other ones that each would fetch or as my colors. It'd actually be more than that. It might even be 7. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Our 3 fetch lands. And we're playing the fetch lands to not only fetch our Triumph, but we're also going to go get our shock lands. Shock lands are probably, behind the fetch lands, some of the most commonly played lands in Commander, because they're dual lands, meaning they tap for 1 of 2 colors, or they help you fix your colors a little bit better. So we're playing Breeding Pool, we're playing the Overgrown Tomb, and we're playing Water Grave. Those are the 3 Shocklands we have access to. Now, the difference with the Shocklands is I cannot play the other 3 Shocklands that would have my colors, because they actually have types here. They have basic land types. And so the Commander color identity rules do say that I can only play lands with the basic land types of my Commander's color identity. So, for example, there, I cannot play the 3rd. So, next up, we're going to pick my next 2 favorite land cycles here. We're going to kind of come quickly upon deciding whether we're going to play basic lands or not. I probably will, but we'll get to that in a second. We're going to do the Commander lands and then our Innistrad lands. So the Commander lands were released in Battle Bond and Commander Legends. We got Undergrowth Stadium. We got Rejuvenating Springs, and we got Morphic Pool. Now, the Battle Bond versions of these were just re-released in Commander Legends 2. So we got those reprinted, and then the other 5 actually got printed in the original Commander Legends. So that makes me happy as a guy who loves extended art frames, because I can have access to all of them in the extended art frame. And then we're going to go into what I'm calling the Innistrad lands. I don't know what the other name is. This is the lands that were released in Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. They come in tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. So on turn 1 and 2, these would come in tapped, but hopefully every turn after that, these guys are going to come in untapped, which is going to be really good, especially later in the game when we draw them, or hopefully we can sequence our lands, right, so that we play them a little bit later on. Now we're going to go through and decide What are the lands we want to play? I view Boseiju Who Endures to be a green staple. This is a land that not only comes down as a land, but you can basically pitch it to destroy a target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. So it kind of acts as both a Field of Ruin and in my opinion, a Krosan Grip, with a little bit of difference. But Besage is a really good because it's a removal spell, or it's a land. And I feel the exact same way about Odawara, Soaring City. I'm going to play it in here. I think it's really helpful. For 3 and a green, I can return something back to its owner's hand. And this is most permanent. Artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. Both of those costs are reduced by the number of legendary creatures I control. So Odawara hopefully will go down to 1 blue mana, but less often than of course Boseiju will go down to 1 mana, because Boseiju starts at 2, right, as opposed to 4 for Odawara. So we're gonna fill out the last couple slots, and then we're gonna throw in some basics. I like to play in green. I like to play Forest Ramp. We'll get into that in a second. So we need to set up our lands for it. So I'm gonna play Rimewood Falls and Woodland Chasm. These are the snow duels from Kaldheim that come in tapped. What this is going to do is it's going to give us another 2 fetchable targets. This one is a Swamp Forest, and the Rimewood Falls is a Forest Island. This is going to give us 2 more fetchable forest targets. Of course, our other fetchable forest targets are the Zagoth Triome, Breeding Pool, and Overgrown Tomb. Those are our other forest targets, but now we have 2 more, and this is just here so that let's say I draw Zagoth Triumph and I draw one of the shock lands that can be searched. I have enough targets to search for that I'm not wasting my fetch lands. I'm not wasting my actual sorcery ramp. But we'll get into that in a second. The last land that I'm going to add here is Fabled Passage. Fabled Passage allows us to go get a basic land, and then it comes in untapped if we control 4 of the lands. So this is going to help us also fix our colors just that little bit. So we're up to 29 lands. I think that's a really good spot to be in. Normally we would run our basic land choices based upon the percentages in our deck. So what I mean by that is on any of these deck building things, you can come down here and it'll tell you what the percentages are of mana symbols in your deck. This is getting really skewed at the moment because I only have a few spells in my deck, but I expect this green number to be a lot higher than the other 2. So what I think I'm going to do for the moment is 2 forests, 1 island, 1 swamp. That'll put me at about 33 lands, which is an acceptable number for me. But I think in the place of that last basic, instead of adding 1 more basic land, I think I see it here in my pile and I like it, so I think we're going to go for it. That is Castle Garenbrig. Castle Garenbrig is a land that taps for, can pay 4 green mana to it and get 6 green mana. Since most of our Hydras are going to be green, I think we're going to get a lot more value out of this to help cast our Hydras. So I'm going to throw this in here over a basic land. And we're at 34. I think 34 is perfect. We're going to have plenty of ramp. We're going to have plenty of card draw. I doubt we're going to have many issues with lands. So let's move into that ramp. Let's move into the ways that we're going to go get lands from our deck. First up, we have Farseek. Farseek is a 2 mana ramp spell. It says you may search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. And then we can put that on the battlefield tapped and then shuffle our library. Well, the great part here is that every dual land in our deck is at least one of those, including our Triumph, is at least one of those types other than forest. You notice that Farseek has every land type other than forest. Every single one of our searchable targets is that. So Farseek is going to go get every searchable target we have in our deck. Next up is 3 visits. This will go get us a forest card, not a basic forest, a forest card. So that will be able to get us any of our dual or tri-land that has a forest type. We're going to play Rampant Growth. This is going to go get us a basic land. So we have only 4 targets for that, but that's okay. With such low of a percentage of our lands being basic lands, we'll probably always have an accessible target for that. And then we're going to play Nature's Lore. Same thing. It's going to go get it's going to go get a forest land. That's all of the ramp that I can think of off the top of my head that I want to play. The next answer might be something like Kodama's Reach. But the one card I'm kind of half considering, the only problem is I only have 2 searchable targets for it, but I doubt I'll see them enough, and that's a card called Into the North. This is a 2-mana ramp spell that says we can search for our library for a snowland card and put it on the battlefield tapped. Well, we have 2. We have Woodland Chasm and we have Rimewood Falls, and I doubt we'll see both of them before we see this card. So I think this is a great piece of 2-mana land ramp that's going to go get us a dual land. So that's great. I'm not playing any other snowlands. What I could do here to help, if I was really worried about it, was I could make all my basics snow basics, and then I would have 6 legal targets instead of 2. But I'm not worried about it. I don't think we're going to have that problem. I think we're going to always have at least one of these accessible in our deck to go get with Into the North. So I think that's a really great choice. I think the other piece of ramp I like here is a card like Utopia Sprawl. This is an enchantment that allows me to enchant a forest. I choose another color, and when it comes into play, that land also taps for that color. I think this is one of those cards I really like here since we're in 3 colors. I think this is going to help us a lot. It's only 1 mana, and I think this is going to help us along the way. Yes, it's an enchantment, so of course it can be dealt with. But I find a lot of the times that our opponents really don't run a ton of enchantment removal, and if they do, they're not using it on a Utopia Sprawl. So we don't got to worry about that. I think that's a really good choice. All right, from here, I think that our deck can benefit from maybe a mana doubler. And I think the one I want to choose here is Zendikar Resurgent. This is a 7-mana enchantment, so we're going to have to make our way up there. But it says, whenever you tap a land for mana, you add 1 mana of your mana pool of any type that land produced. So if I tap a land for green, I have to get a 2nd green. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, draw cards. That's going to help refill our hands a little bit. Again, this is pretty high up on the top end, but I have no doubt that we'll get there. This is one of those decks that kind of starts getting access to a lot of really good mana quickly. So let's talk about how we want to take advantage of Zaxara's abilities. So it says whenever you cast a spell with X then its mana cost, create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token and put X counters on it. Where X is that spell's CMC. Well, there's 2 ways that we can take advantage of this with the +1/+1 counters and with the X, right? So for the +1/+1 counters, I love a card like Branching Evolution. This is an enchantment that says if you would put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you put twice that many instead. Well, that's great because when we make that token with Zaxara, they're going to come down with double. And then for a full pun on the double, I think we want Doubling Season. Doubling Season is an enchantment that says if you'd make 1 or more tokens, instead you make twice that many instead. And if you put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, +1/+1 counters are a counter, we put twice that many instead. So if we play let's say we play Hydra Crisis for 6 total, X is 4, and we have a Doubling Season out, instead of making 1 4/4 Hydra, we would make 2 8/8 Hydras. So you can see that Doubling Season is going to pair up with a lot of these X-mana Hydras that we're going to put into the deck. And we'll get more to that in a second. The creatures are, to be honest, my last of my concerns. I want to make sure we build everything around them first. The next of our all-star enchantments is Unbound Flourishing. 2 and a green for an enchantment that says whenever you cast a permanent spell with mana cost that contains X, double the value of X. So remember, permanents are creatures, artifacts, enchantments. Those are our permanent spells that we can cast. So this is going to even double the size of those Hydras that come down. And because this is a replacement effect, Zaxara will see that doubled X when we get that token. And the bottom half says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, If that spell's mana cost or that ability's activation cost contained X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So the really cool part about Unbound Flourishing is stuff like Exsanguinate and Torment Hellfire will actually get to copy with Unbound Flourishing. So even if we can't dump a ton of mana into these, we can potentially double them and make them even better. And I've ended games with a 18 or 20 mana Exsanguinate that gets doubled, and it just takes the table out. And then lastly, for my first little run through of enchantments here, we're going to throw in a Sylvan Library. We are kind of a combo deck at the end of the day. We're trying to find Freed from the Real and Pemin's Aura to kind of ramp ourselves off. That's kind of how I built the deck before and how I enjoyed it. We're not in any colors that have any access to tutor these disenchantments, but we do have access to tutors that tutor them as cards. So that's what we're going to look into next, is how can we tutor them as cards efficiently and quickly. And the two, I think, easiest two to run for this deck are going to be Demonic Tutor, because for those of you that have yet to see any other Hometown Commander videos, I have what I call a staple binder. That is a collection of cards that I own one of that I use in all of my decks. So I have a Demonic Tutor and I have a Vampiric Tutor. So I have the ability to put those in my decks, and it's something that I will happily use. As well as I do have a Sylvan Tutor. I don't think we need that, though. I think we're more interested in this Worldly Tutor. That'll go get us any creature we want, which is going to be really important when it comes to dealing with specific threats. Or let's say we have a really big board and we just want to go get this Herald of Secret Streams, or we want to go get this Vorinclex to give us good value. We can do that way. And then another one of my favorite tutors in this deck, and it's a little bit convoluted, but you'll understand it once you read it. X green, Uncage the Menagerie. Search your library for up to X creature cards with different names that each have converted mana cost X. Reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So the tricky thing about Hydras, which we kind of need to keep in the back of our mind, is that whenever there's an X printed on a card, the X does not count for that creature's converted mana cost, or the new name for that is mana value. So, for example, the Hydra Crisis you see here on screen is technically a 2 CMC creature, even though it has X blue-green as its mana cost. This is 2. So, if I were to play an Uncage the Menagerie for 2 into X, I would be able to go get Hydroid Crisis and, for example, a Hydra like Voracious Hydra, one of my other favorites in this deck. This has a CMC of 2. These are... back when I had this deck, these were my 2 most common targets with Uncage the Menagerie. Hydra Crisis, because it gains me life and draws me cards, and Voracious Hydra because it fights when it comes into the battlefield, which is a great ability to have. Some other 2 CMC creatures that I really like. We have Neverwinter Hydra. This is from the AFR Commander decks. This actually came out just slightly after I had this deck together, so Neverwinter Hydra never actually was in the original copy of this deck. When it comes in, we roll X D6s, and it gets plus one counters equal to the total of those rolls. So it's going to come in with a lot of tokens, but that is 2 mana because there's just 2 green pips on the card. Another great Hydra that's 2 mana is Steelbane Hydra. This is another great one for the deck because of its ability. So it comes in with X +1/+1 counters on it. Its ability says 2 and a green, remove a counter from it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So if we have a bunch of extra mana, up and including lots and lots of mana, if we get our Zaxara combo out, Steelbane Hydra can help us get rid of pesky targets. Or even in the early game, if we have some extra mana, Steelbane Hydra can help us get rid of some early targets. And then although it's not a Hydra, one of my favorite creatures to put in this deck is Stone Coil Serpent. For X, it's a 0/0 reach, trample, protection from multicolored, and it comes in with X +1/+1 counters on it. Stone Coil Serpent is great because it has reach, first off. Not every Hydra in our deck has reach, even though you might imply that they should. With how big they are as creatures, they don't always have reach. But 2, protection from multicolored is really great because a lot of removal in Commander is multicolored, or the most obviously besides swords and path and things like that, a lot of your popular 2-color removal is strong. So this is going to help protect Stonecoil Serpent from removal, especially if we need to put this down early as a body. So Stonecoil Serpent is really great. One of those ones that I think is going to do us a lot of good. I have a couple more enchantments I think I want to add here that I think are going to help our strategy. The first is a Trample Enabler. Not all of our Hydras are going to naturally have Trample. So I'm going to play one of my favorite cards, Garruk's Uprising. This is a green enchantment that says, when it comes in, you draw a card if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, which is going to be a lot of our Hydras. Our Hydras are going to be pretty big. Then it says all of our creatures get Trample, which is great, right? That's going to push our strategy forward. And then it says, whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. That does not say non-token. This is whenever a creature. So if we played a Hydra for a lot of mana, we would draw off that, and then Zaxara would make us our token, and we would draw off of that. So that's great. Remember, we already have that Zendikar Resurgent, so we have 2 things right now that'll draw us cards when things come in. But we're going to put in a third, and then a fourth later. But we're going to put an Elemental Bond. This is an enchantment for the green, 2 and a green. Says whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters battlefield under control, draw a card. Again, doesn't say non-token, so we can take good advantage of that. We're going to play probably the one staple blue enchantment that most decks are going to play, and that's Heuristic Study. We are probably going to end up dumping our hand in this deck fairly quickly. We're going to put in some draw spells, but at the end of the day, anything we can do minimally to get more cards into our hand is going to be a big help, and I think Heuristic Study is perfect for that. And then I always say that you should put in something fun into your deck that isn't just, you know, mean mug commander. Simic Ascendancy is one of my favorite alternate win cons of all time. For 3 mana, I can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature I control. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on a creature, you put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. And then it says at the beginning of your upkeep, if it has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. Simic Ascendancy gets really fun with Doubling Season, because Doubling Season will double the amount of +1/+1 counters that you put on the creature, and then it'll double the amount of counters you put on Simic Ascendancy. So it'll actually get doubled twice, which is really cool. So this works really well with Doubling Season, but this is a fun card, one of my favorites, and I think it just gives us a little added bonus. The other good part is, even if we're a little bit behind on board, but we have 20 counters on Simic Ascendancy, now it forces our opponents to deal with it, right? It forces our opponents to deal with the Simic Ascendancy as opposed to letting it go. All right, now we'll move into our artifacts, and I think I have 6 here that are really important and that I want to toss in here. First off, we have Soul Ring. I'm more than happy to pay Soul Ring in this deck, especially since we're going to be playing these big mana Hydras and we need access to as much mana as we can get, so they're going to play that. And we're also going to play a Crypt. Same thing. We want to get access to as much mana as we can quickly. We're going to play these big spells, and especially once we start playing our X draw spells, we want to make sure that we're playing them for high amounts. We are in 3 colors, so Arcane Signet is definitely going to be really helpful, allowing us to tap for any of our commander's colors. This is going to be great since we do need all 3 colors, right, to cast Zaxara. We do need access to all 3 of them, and Arcane Signet does a great job at that. Next up, we're going to play a newer card, and this card came out, to be honest, just before I took this deck apart. So I only got a chance to play with it a couple times, but I really like it. Pardon me. It's called Elementalist Palette. For 3 mana, it's a artifact that says whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, put 2 charge counters on it. We can tap it for a mana of any color, so it's this kind of a little bit more expensive Arcane Signet in our deck. But the great part is, we can tap it to add a colorless mana for each charge counter on it, and we can only spend that money, or we can only spend that mana to cast a card with X in the cost. Well, that's perfect. That's what we want to do anyway. So we get this out, try to get this out nice and early, start playing some creatures and some other X spells, ramp this baby up, and then eventually it's going to start tapping for a ton of mana. This is just another card in the deck that's going to help us push that X spell strategy forward. We got everyone's favorite green enchantment. We got the Great Henge. The Great Henge helps because it should come down for pretty cheap with how many big Hydras we're playing. It taps for green and gains us back a little bit of life, which is always helpful. But the big thing is the last part where it says whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, you put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. This should help us get +1/+1 counters on the creatures that don't come in with them. But also, it'll just help us, again, draw another card when a creature comes in, which is really good. Because, like I said, we're going to need to refill our hand. We're going to spend a lot of the early game trying to ramp up. And so I think we really are going to need we're going to need the payoffs at the end when we're going to run our hand out fairly quickly. We're going to need to, to refill it back up. And then our last artifact I can think of that's probably of most importance is the Ozolith. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. So destruction, exile, back to our hand, back to the library, doesn't matter. The counters are going to go on the Ozolith. In the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you can move all counters from it onto target creature. This is great if we have Herald of the Secret Streams or some way to give one of our creatures some unblockability or some ways to get through. We can put all of those counters onto something. And make it really, really tough to block, or just give us the value. And the cool part here is if Doubling Season is out as well, because we're taking the counters off of Ozolith and putting them onto another permanent, we will actually get double that. And it'll actually work the opposite way as well. If we have Doubling Season and Ozolith out, and the creature dies, and we go to put those +1/+1 counters on Ozolith, Doubling Season will actually double the amount of counters that are going onto the Ozolith for that creature dying. So those two really, really important, and they're really good. It saddens me that we don't have any of that great white tutor action to go get these a little bit quicker, but that's okay. What we're going to do now is start filling out our removal. We're going to start filling out our creatures, and then we're going to start filling out creatures, and then we're going to start filling out draw spells, because we do need them in this deck. We do need ways to draw. Rhystic Study alone, of course, is not going to get us through. Our few cards that allow us to draw cards will get us through, but the reason we want some draw spells is when we can go infinite with Zaxara, we need a way to find our finishers, right? The 4 spells we talked about being our finishers. We need a way to find them if we don't already have them. Of course, if we have them in our opening hand, perfect. We've done exactly what we needed to do, and we're going to hold on to them for dear life. But the 2 most important cards we need to either have in our opening hand or find are Penman's Aura and Freed from the Rules. So we need to find a tutor, we need to find one of these, and we need to find one of our finishers. And then we need to get up to the amount of mana needed to deploy our combo. But the good part is we're going to have all of these Hydras to help gum up our board and make us a little bit harder to deal with. So let's start with our removal. One of my favorite cards that we get access to in this deck, one of my favorite pieces of 2 mana removal is Assassin's Trophy. Of course, originally printed in Guild of Ravnica, just got that pretty reprint in Double Masters. This is going to hit any target permanent an opponent controls, and then they can go get a basic land for it. But I don't think we care. If it comes down to take out a really important piece, we want to do it, and we don't want to hesitate. We got Cyclonic Rift. A lot of people have opinions on Cyclonic Rift, and I will allow you to have any opinions you want. Please go ahead and flame me in the comment section for playing Cyclonic Rift. But it's important. It's a really good card, and it allows us to push forward sometimes for a victory. We're going to throw in Deadly Rollick, so we can cast for free if we have our commander, to exile target creature. Can get a creature out of the way. It can stop a combo from happening if we have it out, our commander out, or it can just get rid of a pesky attacker if need be. We're also going to play the Fierce Guardianship as well, since we're going to control our commander most of the time. This is just going to counter target non-creature spell for free. This is really good, and we, of course, do not mind seeing this. We also don't mind seeing it because at the end of the day, we have to protect our combo, right? Once we get to our combo, we want to make sure that it doesn't get countered. We're going to add one more little ramp spell here. It's one of my favorites, Growth Spiral. I like this one because you can play it earlier in the game. It draws us a card, and then we can put a land from our hand down to the battlefield. And the cool part is this is at instant speed. So we can do this on an opponent's turn as well, and get kind of another free land drop there. So I really like that card. And then we're going to put in a piece of protection in Heroic Intervention. This is one of those great cards that's going to help protect all of our permanents, not just our creatures, which I think is going to become really important, especially when we start really loading up on great creatures, big creatures. I think this is going to become really important. We're going to add 2 more instants here that I think are going to be really good. Crop Rotation. Crop Rotation says we can sacrifice a land, go get a land, and put it in the battlefield. Every time I play Cabal Coffers and Urborg, or any lands that care about seeing each other or combo together, I like playing Crop Rotation. The reason is it's searchable. And if we have one, we can go get the other. So I like having Crop Rotation. In some other decks, I will play something like Sylvan Scrying, which does the same thing, but it's a sorcery and 2 mana. You don't sack a land, though. It just goes to your hand. And that's pretty helpful as well. But I'm not completely all in on finding Urborg and Cabal Coffers. I just want to be able to get either of the other when I see them. Hopefully we draw into them together, but if we don't, we want to have access to them. And then the last instant I'm going to add, at least for the moment, is Mystical Tutor. This is going to allow us to go get a draw spell if we need it. This is going to allow us to go get a board wipe if we need it. This is going to allow us to go get a tutor if we need it. This is instant or sorcery. So anything in these 2 columns here is something we can go get, and there is a lot of value here. This is also great because it can go get those win cons if we need them. All right, so we're almost through the creatures. I'm going to try to fill the spells out a little bit. I'm going to fill the creatures out a little bit, and then we'll do our final cuts. So we need a board wipe. We need some good board wipes as well. We don't just need a board wipe, we need a good one. Of course, if I can pick board wipes that have X's in the mana cost, right? Well, that's perfect, because it just means that we're going to get... Right? It just means we're going to get more value out of it. So I have a couple X sorcery spells here that are going to either be board wipes or just be really good. We're going to play Villainous Wealth. This is one of my favorite X spells in this deck. X and then Sultai. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. And we can cast any number of spells with mana costs X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. Now, we don't have a ton of way to pay off spells, but Villainous Wealth, if we have nothing else to do and we have 20 mana, or 18 mana or an arbitrarily large amount of mana, Villainous Wealth can do a lot of good. You can ask Mikey or some members of our play group. I always like to say, I'll just go deep on Villainous Wealth for like 18, and the table's like, yeah, okay. You never can turn down, and for that, you just pick the right opponent. Who's your best opponent to go deep off the top of their library and pick some great stuff. We're going to play Curse of the Swine. Exile X target creatures. For each creature exiled this way, its controller gets a boar. That's okay. I don't mind giving them the boars because it exiles the creatures that we're getting rid of. So, of course, they can put their commander back in their command zone, but everything else is gone. One of my absolute favorite X spells is Mass Manipulation. This is one of those cards that can completely turn the tide of a game, and we should have enough mana to do some damage with it. XX Quad Blue. So this is an expensive spell, especially to get good targets on it. So 1 target would be 6, right? 2 targets would be 8. 3 targets would be 10. So we're putting a lot of mana in it, but we hopefully want to get the right things. Gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. I think a lot of people don't realize that this is planeswalkers. So if our opponents are playing some good planeswalkers, we can take them. But this is in here. It's another target from the Mystical Tutor. But if we're playing a big token deck, we're playing against creatures, a big stompy deck or a big ramp deck or something that has a lot of great creatures, we definitely want to take it. Take those things, or we can actually steal commanders with it, which is never a bad idea. And then one more piece of removal here. This is mainly for artifacts and enchantments, but we're going to play Pest Infestation. This is destroy up to X target artifacts and or enchantments. Create twice X, 1/1 black and green pest creature tokens with when this creature dies, you gain a life. So the cool part here is if we can get Unbound Flourishing or anything like that out, we're going to get that extra value. But the good part is no matter what we put into X, Zaxara will make us a Hydra. The cool part about Pest Infestation is it says destroy up to X. So if we have spare mana, we can completely overload mana into Pest Devastation. Let's say we have 15 untapped mana. I can put 7 into X and I will get 14 1/1 creature tokens, and I'll destroy up to X targets, and I'll get that 7/7 from Zaxara. So you can see kind of how, even though we can't get 7 artifacts and enchantments, we're still going to net a ton of value off the back end on getting good value. So before we go into the creatures, because there honestly aren't many other Hydras that I really want to play. This deck, I think, relies more on ramping quickly in spells than it does on actual Hydras. I want to really talk about, really quickly, I want to talk about our draw options. More often than not, we're going to find ourselves reaching for an X mana draw spell to start digging for these big spells that we need access to. So what I want to do is just really quickly talk about what we have as far as X spells goes for drawing, and we'll see what we can do to put them in the deck. I have a bunch of them lined up in front of me, but the first one, which I can't believe I forgot, just because I hadn't seen it yet, was Brainstorm. 1 blue mana, look at the top, draw the top 3, put 2 from your hand back on your deck. This is really great in the early game, because it's going to help us kind of look for more lands if we need them or do other things. So ideally here we want blue draw spells that don't discard. Like a really popular one is Pull from Tomorrow. It's X blue, draw X cards, then you discard a card. And that's at instant speed. So that's good because we could do it, if we left a ton of mana up, we could do it on our opponent's turn. But I kind of really like Blue Sun Zenith for this. This is an instant X triple blue. Target player draws X cards, shuffle it into its owner's library. The cool part about Blue Sun Zenith is this does double duty in our deck. It draws us when we need to draw, but this also could mill out an opponent, right? If we had a lot of mana, we could choose a player, make them draw, 90 cards, 85 cards, 95 cards, an arbitrarily large amount. They draw their entire library, and then they don't have a library to draw from. So this is kind of mill if you think about it. But this would be another piece, another ender. I think we need to keep these cards that can end the game in the back of our head, because more often than not, we're going to need them. Another one of those cards that can do us a lot of good is Open into Wonder. Not Open the Wonder. Open into Wonder. Blue source here that says X target creatures can't be blocked this turn until end of turn. Those creatures gain whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this is cool. We can get a couple of our creatures through. And then we get we get to draw those cards when they hit. And then the cool part with Zaxara is we'll get a token. I think this is one of probably those maybes. This is a card that we might cut first, but I think it fits our strategy and it fits what we want to do. We're going to go for one more. At the end of the day, we need removal, right? As much as we have our own game plan and we want to make it work. I really like a card like Distorting Wake. X triple blue, return X target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. So we're going to hit artifacts, we're going to hit enchantments, we're going to hit creatures, we're going to hit planeswalkers, we're going to hit a lot of things. And I think this is going to be really good at every stage of the game. So I really like that. And then in all reality, we need a couple more draw spells because they're going to become really important. The one I like, just because it allows us to kind of both dig and draw, is Diviner's Portent from AFR. This says X triple blue, roll D20 and add number of cards to your hand, 1 through 14, draw X cards, 15 plus, scry X, and then draw X cards. So at minimum, we're just going to draw X, which is what we want. We want to draw that many cards, especially when we have an arbitrarily large amount of mana. We want to draw most of our deck. But the other cool part is we can, let's say we dump 40 mana into X, we roll a 15 plus, we can scry 40 and then draw 40. So we can get some of those cards out of the way that we don't need and draw the rest. Now, when we pick an arbitrarily large number like 40, that sounds kind of dumb, right? Why would you scry 40 and draw 40? But if we can only put 10 mana into this, scry 10 before we draw 10 is really good, right? That allows us to kind of make sure that we're drawing the best of what we can draw. And make sure that we get what we need. for that, right? We really want to make sure that we do it that way. And then I think we'll go ahead and play the Pulfrum tomorrow. The reason is I like that it's at instant speed. I like that we could respond with it. If someone tried to stop our combo, this is something that we could respond with, or restart the combo to play. So I really like that. I think that's going to be good. I think it's going to draw us well. I think I'm going to cut this open into Wonder. As much as I think about it, as much as I like it, it's not up to X targets, it's X targets. So I think more often than not, we're going to want to put more mana into it than we actually have access to, right? I think we're going to want to dump a ton of mana into it. But I don't think we're going to, more often than not, I don't think we're going to have what we want. All right, so we got 90 cards in the main, or 89 cards in the main. Sorry, 90 was Zaxara. So let's move back into the creatures. Let's finish out our creatures here. We want lots of big boy hydras that are going to give us lots and lots and lots of good value. And are going to do us a lot of good. I think the first creature I'm going to throw in here is Sakashima. It'll give us a target. It'll allow us to copy Zaxara, as well as it'll allow us to copy any other creature that isn't a Hydra. And the reason I say that is if I copy a Hydroid Krasis, Sakashima would become a 0/0. Sorry, that's Sakashima with 1,000 faces. So we don't want to do that. Well, we can target Herald of the Secret Streams, we can target Vorinclex, we can target Zaxara, we can target other of our creatures in the deck that are, these guys, these that aren't these X-Spell Hydras. And that'll be good because we can either double up on this X ability, or we could double up on the Vorinclex ability, or, we can give more protection that way. So that's really good. I think that'll be really helpful. Next up, we're going to play Mistcutter Hydra. This is another really good Hydra. This is only X green. So this is only 1 mana other than the X. Can't be countered, which is great. Haste protection from blue, which is going to be really useful. And then enters the battlefield with X plus and plus 1 counters on it. I really like that. I think that's going to be really helpful. It's going to give us a lot of really good value. And hopefully we see good value on our investment there with it only being 1 pip. Another Hydra I really like is Hooded Hydra. This originally, which Mikey, I think if I remember correctly, this was from this was from Tarkir, wasn't it? It was from Khans. So Mikey and I, of course, our love for Tarkir still shines through with Hooded Hydra. Comes in with X plus 1/+1 counters on it, so it's a 2 mana. But when it dies, we get a 1/1 green snake creature token for each plus 1/+1 counter on it. So that's great. When it dies, we're going to get more value. And we can morph it if we want to, but I doubt we'll ever morph it. I think we're going to be definitely playing it for every value we can get out of it. Since we're going to play the +1/+1 counters, I think it makes a lot of sense to play Kerbis Harvest Celebrant. This is from the Midnight Hunt Commander decks. Not a Hydra, this is a Tree Folk, but it's something that gives us a lot of good value. Comes in with X plus 1/+1 counters on it. That's great. That's what all of our Hydras are doing anyway, so I like it. And it's not even just, I apologize, it's not just X. It's for the amount of mana spent to cast it, so you will actually get plus 1/+1 counters equal to that 2 green mana as well. And then instant speed, it says remove a plus 1/+1 counter from it. Prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn to another target creature with a plus 1/+1 counter on it. So this can save our Hydras. If Zaxara has a counter on it, this can save Zaxara from getting destroyed by a damage effect. Or in combat, this could really help us out as far as attacking or blocking goes. Maybe we could, a lot of times with Kerbis and the other decks that I played in, your creature with the plus 1/+1 counter blocks a bigger creature or tries to trade, and then you remove the counter from it to prevent the damage that would be dealt to it, but would still kill the thing you're blocking. So that's really good. It's also going to help these Hydras that are just going to be giant get to be really good and get protected. And then since we're going to be playing these big power creatures, I think Selvala Heart of the Wilds becomes really good here. It says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. So hopefully we're always putting down a little bit bigger of a Hydra than we put down previously. So this should help us draw cards that way. And then for green, we can add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the greatest power among creatures to control. So the bigger the Hydras we have, the more mana we get. And it's always great. It's always great to have another creature that works with our combo. So Zaxara only taps for 2 mana, but Zavala can tap for more, and it also combos with our 2 enchantments, Freed from the Real and Pemenzora. It also combos, so think about it this way, it's kind of a second Zaxara for us to use for the combo. It doesn't have Zaxara's X spell ability, but it is another copy of Zaxara for us for the purposes of that combo. So that's really good, because we do have a way to search out Zavala with the Worldly Tutor. So if we see Pemenzora or Freed from the Real in our hand, and we have access to any of our tutors, we could go get the Zavala that way. I've got 5 slots left in the deck, and I think we should probably use all of them for creatures. So what I want to do here is let's get up to 100, and then I'll try to think of... We'll go through EDH Rec, and I pulled up a Scryfall search here, and we'll just see if anything else sticks out. Another card that I really like, and it kind of acts as another piece of draw, is Gadwick the Wizened. X triple blue for a creature. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards, and then when you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. I like this because it draws when it comes in. I think it's worth considering. Maybe we'll find some other Hydras that are better than it. But I think it could be really good. I think it helps us with what we want. So I really like it. I think next up we got... I think next we're going to go ahead and throw in Primordial Hydra, another big boy. X green green. When it enters the battlefield with X target counters on it, at the beginning of upkeep we double them, and then as long as it has 10 or more counters on it, it has trample. So hopefully we can get it to either have 10 the turn it comes down, or we double it and it'll get 10, and now we have a creature that has trample on it. Because remember, not every one of our Hydras has trample on it, so we do want to take that trample when we can get it. I think we're also going to play Protein Hydra. This is another really good one. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to it, we prevent that damage and remove counters from it instead of it actually taking damage. This will be really good because if we can prevent the damage, then of course we won't have to remove any counters. But since we're going to have so many ways to put on so many counters, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. And it says whenever a counter is removed from it, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it at the beginning of the next end step. So that's your payoff. If we don't remove all the counters off of it from the damage, at the end step, we're going to put double the amount of counters we took off back onto it. So that's really good. That's going to help us a ton. I'm going to try out Nimbus Swimmer here. This is a card that I've played in the past, and it seems pretty cool. X blue-green, flying, comes in with X counters on it. So this will give us a flyer, kind of like Hydroid Krasis, where it has flying. We'll happily take the flying where we can, because then we don't have to rely on Herald of the Secret Streams and things like that to give us the advantage. I think we'll happily take. Well, I think we'll happily take the flying there. And my only other thought there is we could cut it for another creature that grows itself, or a creature that gets more value. Like, I think another really cool creature for this deck is Ochre Jelly from AFR. Comes in with X +1/+1 counters on it. And then when it dies, if it had 2 or more counters, it splits and it creates a token that has half the number of counters that were on it. So this is cool because then if it's arbitrarily big, it kind of can kind of split in half, and then we still have access to a pretty big creature. Just taking a look at some of the other Hydras that I printed out, but none of them really seem to grab my attention. So we're at 100 now, which is great. I think this is a pretty good deck as it sits, but what I always like to do is, even when I'm even when I'm done building a list, I think is good. I think it's still good to go through EDH, and it's still good to do just a tiny bit of research. Just make sure we didn't miss anything obvious. Yes, I'm basing this on my memory of a list that I used to have. When I created the proxy pool that was in front of me, I actually did not have the original list. I was just trying my best to remember the things that were on the list. So I pulled up two things. So the first is a Scryfall search for cards that have X in the mana cost. It's really good to use either Scryfall or Gatherer to search for cards. Like, let's say, for example, I was looking for, in this example, cards with X in the mana cost, and then my commander's colors. It nets me this search. Now, I normally like to look at all my searches with two different sorts. I like to look at EDH rank, because this is going to show you which cards are more played. And then I do like to look at release date as well. And the reason is because sometimes people don't necessarily always have the newest cards on EDH rec. There's a new card and people haven't really looked at it. Sometimes it doesn't get added to the page. So we'll start with EDH rank first, and then we'll go into newest first. So looking at our most popular ones here, so we have the Torment Hellfire, right? That is our one of our finishers. We could pay off the Walking Ballista with enough mana. So that's actually definitely something to consider. 4 mana to put a counter on it, remove a counter, it deals 1 damage to a target. If we have infinite mana, we would have enough mana to use Walking Ballista. So that's a good option I did not think of when I put this list together. So that's great. This is why we do this. This is why we look. And I have a hunch it's probably sitting on EDH rec as well. Sanguinate, Curse of the Swine, Blue Sun Zenith again. The Hook. I actually didn't think about Meat Hook. It's actually a really good option. Meat Hook seems like a really decent piece of removal. So that's something we might have to consider. There's our pull from tomorrow, Genesis Wave, we have to avoid because all of our permanents don't necessarily come in with power and toughness, so we got to avoid that. Villainous Wealth we see there. Hangerback Walker, cool card, but I don't know that it fits exactly what we want to do. Black Sun Zenith is a great board wipe. The problem is with Zaxara out, this is just going to kill all of our stuff too. So I don't know that I really love it. Same thing with Gazer Granite. Like, it's a really good board wipe, but the problem is with any of the things out that we have to gain value off of it, it's just going to hurt us more than it helps us. Okay. Drowning Dreams was another card that I had considered. I thought of off the top of my head, but I didn't print it out, so I don't have it in front of me. But it's X2 and a blue. Instant, choose one. If you control your commander, you can choose both. Target player draws X cards. Target player mills twice X cards. I think this actually might be better in more scenarios than maybe one of our other draw spells. And the reason I said that is if I'm going to try to draw, I don't know, 50 cards to try to find my win condition, which is the play line this deck takes a lot of times, maybe it ends up it'll end up milling someone out potentially in that process. So that's a card that I deem to be fairly important. I think that's something we should definitely consider when we go back to our list. I'd considered Astral Cornucopia. I like it, but I think it's harder to pay off. But I think it's tough to not consider because it's a mana dump if we need it. It's an X spell that would get us a Hydra. But my problem is, how much mana do you have to pay into it before it becomes relevant? To get 1 mana out of it, I've got to pay 3. To get 2 mana out of it a turn, I got to pay 6. I don't know. I don't know that I'm that high on it, but I could see why people would be high on it. Damnable Pack would be another a finisher in the deck, but I think I prefer Torment Hellfire and Exsanguinate because they hit all players and not just one player. So I see why this could be a good option there, but I don't like that. We're seeing some more Hydras here. Hungering Hydra is definitely a Hydra I'd considered. Comes in with the counters, can't be blocked by more than one creature, so if we give it trample, it means it's got a high chance to go through. And then whenever it's dealt damage, put that many counters on it. I think that's a creature we consider. I think that could be good. Here we go, Stroke of Genius, another draw spell. I like Profane Command. This is an interesting spell. Target player, so we get to choose 2. Target player loses X life. Return target creature with CMC X or less from your graveyard back to the battlefield. Target creature gets -X until end turn. And up decks, target creatures gain fear until end turn. This could be interesting because we could use this as a finisher, but I don't think so. I think we've got better stuff we can use. Dread Summons, kind of another interesting card, but again, I just don't think I can use it to its ability. Alter Ego is something I've considered, but the question becomes how many creatures in the deck can we copy and it be really good? Sure, Herald of the Secret Strings, but the problem is all my creatures that have actual power and toughness are all legendary. So the Altered Ego doesn't really do what I want it to do, because as soon as it comes in, it's going to have to get sacrificed. All right, so that's the first page of EDH rank. Let's go to release date just to see if we miss anything. And remember, release date's going to put the most recent set first, including like reprints. So, you know, these just saw reprints in Double Masters, so they're up here first. Even the Score is another one that I've seen around, but I don't think I can use it. I think I would much rather just have a Blue Sun Zenith or something like that over that, but I think it's definitely an interesting card. Change of Plans looks kind of interesting, but again, I worry that I won't be able to use it to its best ability. Okay. Yeah, I think we've probably seen most of what we're going to see as far as that goes. So Walking Ballista, Meat Hook, and Drawn in Dreams are in our maybes for now. Okay. So let us press onward on EDH Rec. EDH Rec, of course, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people in the community's opinion, the best deck building resource on the web for Commander. Allows you to go find your commander. What I thought was kind of interesting when looking for Sultai commanders, Zaxara does rank 3rd as of the time of this recording, which I think is kind of cool. Really, really cool that it's up there that high. But okay. So as we go down, we see right there, right? The 2 combos we're looking to play. Freed from the Real and Pemin's Aura, both with it. That's great. I don't think I care as much about combos, but we'll open up another tab. We'll see if we can, I don't know, maybe we don't see a combo that we haven't thought of. Okay, so here we see people are really high on Hungering Hydra. It kind of makes me want to work it back in. Now that I read the card, I think it looks pretty good. People also really high on Vastwood Hydra, but I think I'm higher on other Hydras. A lot of people playing Genesis Hydra. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put a non-land permanent with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Shuffle the rest. I actually think it could be good, and the reason is because it could go get a Great Henge. It could go get any of our enchantments. Go get a lot of things. I'm surprised I didn't honestly think about Genesis Hydra, but I think this is another one just like Hungering Hydra where maybe we need to work it back in to some degree. So another one to consider here. Yeah, so obviously high up on the Cultivate. We're not really playing any of the basic land ramp because we don't have enough of them. The thing I worry is if I play Cultivate and I play Rampant Growth and Fabled Passage, and am I going to have enough basic lands to go find? So I really like the interventions. There's something I had in the deck in the past, but I realized that as the deck gets closer to this combo, it doesn't need this type of ability more and more. So I think we're going to hold off on that. Love the idea of Kadamba the West Tree, but again, we're not playing enough basic lands to make it worth it. I love Gargos, one of my favorite green legendary creatures, but I don't know that I want it. But again, it's another thing to consider for sure, because it makes all of our Hydras cost 4 less to cast. So definitely something, again, worth considering for sure. So you see we're on the same page. Capricorn can change its attacking target. I don't really care about that. I could see why people would like it, but I'm okay. I don't see as much value in this as stuff like Hooded Hydra that can give me something when it leaves the battlefield, but I could see why people would like it. We see some of our choices here. We see the Ochre Jelly there, which is cool. Clonian Hydra, not an X spell, but it comes down with counters and then it doubles. That's cool. I thought about Nyx Bloom Ancient, but I think we have plenty of other stuff that we're looking to do. We see Mana Gorger Hydra there, which would be a good choice, but again, I think I have other things that I care about. We see the Walking Ballista again. Again, something I think I need to consider putting in. I think it'll lead to a better playline sometimes. And as we go down, I don't really see any other creatures that really catch my eye. So let's go down to the instance. People really high up in Erebos' Intervention, which makes sense. You get rid of a creature and gain the life. So I can understand. So we see people really high on Condescend and Syncopate, and the reason there is you play the Seedborn Muse, which or a Wilderness Reclamation, which allow you to untap all your lands or your permanents at the end of your turn, and so then you can hold up these big X spell counter spells. I see it. I see the benefit, but I think I want to go a little bit more combo with the deck. I wanted to try to sink ever forward into this combo, and so for that reason, I will avoid that playline. But I see the benefit in it. I see where it's supposed to go, but I'm gonna make the choice, at least for me, for the deck I want to play, that way. So that's the way I'm gonna do that. Going down through the instance, we see more good stuff. Here we see Dominate, kind of similar to the what was it? Similar to Mass Manipulation in that it takes control of a permanent, but I think I like taking control of more permanents than just one. So this will only take care of one. Sultai Charm, not a bad choice, but that's okay. We're going to move down into the sorceries now. So we see a lot of the ramp we're playing. Wow, this Dream's getting cards back from our graveyard. That would be a good choice, but I think I'm okay. I think I have the spell mix that I'm okay with for the moment. We got Finale of Eternity there, big board wipe. Entrancing Melody, same thing, kind of interesting, but I think I'd rather play the Mass Manipulation because it doesn't just have to target one. I could take control of multiple things for, let's say a creature's 6 CMC. Well, for 8 mana, I can either take one creature or take 2 with Mass Manipulation. So, of course, the cheaper the creature is, the better Entrancing Melody is, but the more expensive the creature is, the better the Mass Manipulation is. So I think I just prefer Mass Manipulation in that sense. Diabolic Revelation seems interesting. I'm a big Mass Tutor. That would be good, right? Because we could go get every single one of our combo pieces at once. It's something to consider. It's definitely this would definitely be a tutor that we'd have to go big for, though. Being already 5 mana before you play it, you would really have to go deep into it. So maybe the more that I look at it, the less I kind of love that. Triumph, it hurts not to play the Triumph, or at least we'd have to try to find a spot for it. But I think we're going to find more success going for our combo finish than we are for the combat finish. So this is what I'll put this in the considering board for sure, because Triumph for the Hordes is important. But I don't know that I'm forcing it in right away. Merchant Ultimatum, one of my favorite cards in Sultai colors. Really fun in this deck because you can go get a lot of those big stuff like Great Henge, Unbound Flourishing, things like that. But I think the spot that I would put this in is definitely better used for some other spells. We'll go into artifacts. We see Great Henge up there. We see Ozolith up there. Combined Chrysalis is a card I use in some other token decks because it gives all of our tokens flying. But I think I'd rather play into getting the Herald of the Secret Streams and going that route. Doubling Cube, really fun artifact, but that's okay. I don't think I need it in there. All right, so we see, you look at these top 12, these top 10 here. Actually, I didn't even realize Mana Bloom. Mana Bloom actually probably would be pretty good. Comes in and you remove a counter from it to get mana, but it's okay. You see, but for the other 9 here, minus Mana Reflection, I mean, this is exactly where I thought was. I'm choosing Zendikar Resurgent over Mana Reflection because it draws me the card. Even though Mana Reflection is really good, and it's actually better because it doubles the mana, whereas this just adds 1 extra. So, for example, if I tap a Great Henge with Zendikar Resurgent, I'm actually not getting any extra because it's just lands. With Mana Reflection, I'm actually getting 4 green mana instead of 2. So you could see the difference, but I think I like Zendikar Resurgent a little better because we're going to need to pay that off. I think that payoff really helps. So here we see Primal Vigor, another token doubler. The only problem with this is that this affects both players, whereas doubling season only affects us. So I think that's why it is really, really, really important. Retribution of the Ancients is a card that I think I really like the look of. I think it's a cool little piece of tech that we could work in for some removal. So it's just 1 black. And then for a black, and remove X +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. Target creature gets -X/-X on every turn. We do that at instant speed. I think this pairs well with the Ozolith. This pairs well with a lot of the other stuff we have, and can get rid of pesky creatures, especially at instant speed. I think I kind of want to work this in. It's a card that I think I really like, and it's going to catch some people off guard. So it's definitely something we'll put on that maybe list of cards to either put in our kind of sideboard that we're going to test and look at, or cards we're going to throw in later. Love the Shark Typhoon, but I can't. I don't think I can pay it off as much as I want to. I'd pulled up the Nissa Steward of Elements before, but I think I'm probably okay on that one. And we go into artifacts, and we see a lot of the same things. Going down into lands, did I forget anything that's I want for sure? No, I think I'm playing the lands I really want to play. I can't think of anything that I've missed. Pathways are cool. If I wasn't going to play the basic land ramp, they're kind of cool. Of course, if you have the OG duels or your playgroup doesn't care about you playing the OG duels, of course, who wouldn't want to play them? They're searchable. But that's not really my thing. I don't have them, nor do I want them. Okay, so let's go through our combos. I'm not playing Arbor Elf, so we can just kind of get rid of those. So Bloom Tender is another one that we can play with Free from the Real and Pemzora, but I'm okay. I don't really care about it. We see the Deadeye Navigator, Peregrine Drake, Infinite combo there. I don't really care about it. We've got the Sanguine Bond, Exquisite Blood combo. Good idea, but I'm okay. I don't think I need it. I really like adding the Walking Ballista. It's kind of a 1-card combo that'll already add on to this infinite mana that we can create. And then we're just going down, finding more things to combo with Pemzora, but I think we're good there. Okay, so we'll go back to our list here. We got 100 cards. I've got a couple cards I'm considering adding in. I think the most important one is Walking Ballista. Let's get Walking Ballista into the list. What do we cut for Walking Ballista? My first thought is the Nimbus Swimmer, so we'll do that. We'll throw it into our considering. I think Walking Ballista opens up more combo potential, and I just think it's a little bit more useful. I think Walking Ballista is a little bit more useful. Okay, so that gets rid of Walking Ballista. Drown in Dreams. This maybe we play over one of our draw spells. Do we play this over Pull from Eternity? It costs more. We wouldn't have to discard, but we could mill a opponent. Yeah, I think I like it. I think I like Drown in Dreams. I think the upside is a lot higher. But the downside we're leaving with taking Pull from Eternity out is that if we need cheap draw, we're getting rid of the Pull from Eternity that could do that, but we're adding, or Pull from Tomorrow that could do that, but we're adding the potential to mill someone in the process. So I like that swap. I think that's a good swap. I think it'll help us good there. All right, next up we have the Gargos and Genesis Hydra. I think these ones are really important now that I kind of consider this Hydra strategy a little bit more. Genesis Hydra was honestly a lot better than I had remembered its text being. So I think that's important. And I think Gargos, although it's a little expensive and we can't get any benefit off of Zaxara from playing it, I think Gargos is just a net positive. Mainly because whenever it becomes target of a spell, it can fight a creature. So, what do we cut? That becomes the problem. My gut says, are we playing too many spells? Do we need to cut a spell for a creature? And this would be a good place to do it. What were we playing too much of? I kind of want to cut, like, Pest Infestation for a creature. As much as I like it, and it's good removal, we have some other removal. We also have removal in the form of just taking control of those artifacts and enchantments instead. So why don't we do that? Why don't we cut the Pest Infestation? And that will add us Genesis Hydra. We'll add Genesis Hydra in for now over Gargos, because I think Genesis Hydra gives us better value for sure. Alright, so we've got Gargos, we've got Meat Hook, and we've got Triumph, and we've got Retribution. I think Meat Hook is just going to go straight into the considering board here. I really like Meat Hook. The problem with Meat Hook is, although it board wipes, which is a really good thing, if we have Zaxara out, the token that we create, if we don't have any way to double the +1/+1 counters on it, is just going to die right away. So I think I'm okay to move Meat Hook into the considering board there to be something that, and so for me, the way I use the considering board is these are cards that I keep in a little penny sleeve with the deck when I proxy them up, and as I'm playing and testing the deck, these are cards that I'm saying, would these be something that I would want to try to add back in? And so to give you an example, like Meat Hook is something maybe I would pick an enchantment. I don't know, like maybe I would pick a card out of the deck that I would want to put Meat Hook in. Let's just say, for the sake of example, let's say it's Utopia Sprawl. Not that I would do that, but let's say it is. Maybe I think I have too much mana, and I say, okay, every time I play the next 5 games, I'm going to look at Utopia Sprawl in my hand and say, would I rather this card be Meat Hook? And as your testing goes on, you start realizing, is this card more important, or do I need it more? And that's one of the ways that I use to test. It's not the only way, but it's definitely one of the ways. I think Gargos is going to go straight into the considering board as well, as much as I really like it. I think it's something that we can see if we can gain the benefit from it otherwise. And if so, maybe we do it that way. I kind of want to cut Gadwick, and we'll add in this Hungering Hydra. As much as I like Gadwick, I think I'd rather have another big creature that can come out and do good things. And Gadwick is still a really good card. I just think for the moment it doesn't need that spot there. And then the last 2 cards we need to consider: Triumph for the Hordes and Retribution. Triumph just seems good, right? It's a finisher. It ends the game. It does kind of what we want it to do. I just don't know what we put it in for. I like my creatures. I like my sorceries, good mix. I like my instants, good mix. I like my artifacts. I guess you could argue maybe I don't need Soaring and Mana Crypt, but I do kind of want both. I like all of my enchantments. I think all of them do good things, and I don't really want to go down on land count. So what I think we do is we take the Triumph, and we take the Retribution, and I think we put them in the considering board for now. I think they're cards that we still care about. There's cards that I think are still good, but maybe there's something that we want to try in the future. I think we cut the Nimbus Swimmer here, and we leave these 7 cards in the maybe board, and those will be cards that we as we test the deck, as we go into kind of looking at the deck in the future, I think these are the kind of things that we start saying, are these things we care about trying to pull back in? Or are they cards that we... another thing I love about this, considering, and the reason I keep it down here, is maybe a card in a new set comes out that really turns on Retribution or Gargos or one of these cards than I had before, and then that might actually end up pulling one of these back into the main list, right? And so that becomes important too, is kind of keeping some other shots in mind. Right now, my gut tells me that Triumph is probably the first card that comes back in. We could probably use another finisher, but I don't know. I see so many good cards in this deck. I see so many relevant cards. I kind of feel like I'm deer in the headlights. I'm trying to figure out where the heck I would put it back in the spot. But guys, I think I really like this list. It accomplishes my little bit of a Hydra sub-theme I wanted. Plays the X spells really well. We found not only one, but two creatures that take advantage of our idea for an infinite combo. We found another infinite win con in Walking Ballista. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big infinite mana finishers, which is good. That means we have a chance of seeing at least one of them more often than if we were just playing. I think in this deck originally, I just played a Sanguinate and Torment Hellfire as finishers. So we're almost doubling the amount of finishes that we have, right? So that's going to lead us in to get more value that way. But all right, so the plan here is the cards that I didn't have proxied out, we're going to proxy out, get them ready to go. We're going to get this bad boy sleeved up. And probably on one of our upcoming Monday night games, I will try this bad boy out, see how the deck does, and make my changes. The deck is private right now. But what I'm going to do is rename this bad boy, and I'm going to put the I will put the link to this deck down in the deck description. So what you're going to be able to do is, in the future, when you click on this deck, or when you click on that link, it will take you to this deck, and it will be, of course, the most current version of that deck, even if you watched this in the past. I said in the Goreclaw video, and I'll repeat it, the Goreclaw deck tech, and I'll repeat it here. I don't necessarily update every deck every time a set comes out, but if a card from a set belongs in a deck, then I will do it right away. So I'm not saying that this is guaranteed to get updated when Dominaria United comes out, but if there's a big X spell that means something, or there's another good card to put in here, it most certainly will get updated. But like I said, that link to Zaxara down in the description will bring you right to this deck, and it'll show you the most recent version. It'll also show you if I may need changes, and if this is something you want to see an update on in the future, please shoot me a comment down below, and I'll make some updates. I would love to periodically come back and talk about these decks that I brewed on a video, and talk about how they did in the test, how they did in test games, whether or not I actually made any changes or did anything with them. I think it'd be really cool. If that's something you're interested in, shoot me a comment down below, as well as if I missed any obvious cards. If there was some combo I missed that I'm not seeing and that's super OP and that I need to play it, shoot me a comment down below. Or if, just like everyone in the Commander community, if there's a card that I'm playing that you don't like and you don't think I should play because it's too OP or CDH or whatever, tell me in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation about it. I know a lot of people feel a certain way about certain cards, and I completely understand. But other than that, guys, that is it for Zaxara, the Exemplary. We've got plenty of these videos coming, not just ones like this where I had the deck kind of pre-prepared, but in the future we'll be casting, or we'll be crafting completely new decks. A lot of this was from memory of the deck and previous exposure, but in the future we will definitely be using these bad boy, definitely brewing more from the top of my head, and I will definitely be using EDH Rec and Scryfall a lot more than I did this time. This time I kind of had a pretty good plan going in, but I still think it's beneficial. I still hope you enjoyed it. I still hope this is beneficial for you, and I will catch you next time.